Ground rules that when Dr. Oliver and I met about this, this is not intended to be anything at all to do with my positions, my voting record, anything that I do in Congress or on the campaign trail. In fact, all of that is off the table for purposes of today's conference. So any questions related to that, none of the questions need to be directed to me. That's part of the principle of keeping this non-political and focused strictly on policy. So I would ask that be respected as well. My role, if you will, is really that as a moderator. If anything that comes out of my mouth today doesn't end with a question mark, then I've failed in doing my job. My job today is to really moderate the discussion. One last thing on questions. If you do have a question for a specific panelist, if you would note that. If you would note that on the handwritten card. So a couple ways we're going to submit questions today before I introduce the first panel. There are the note cards that were available, if you submitted those. And then for those of you with smartphones, as you see on the screen, you can text a question to that 813 area code phone number up there. Or you can email them to the New Ideas email at Gmail. Any one of those ways, and you can submit those at any time. Those will be constantly being screened in the back of the room, and they'll be brought up here. We have about an hour or so with each panel, so there should be plenty of time to ask questions. And I would really encourage you, please, this is intended to be an engaged day for the entire group. The last thing I will tell you is there will be a poll at the end of each panel. There will be a poll on one very specific question. I'll give instructions for that a little bit later because I don't want to complicate what we're doing right now in submitting questions. But towards the end of this first panel, we'll get you set up. It'll be a smartphone poll where you just text to a specific number and you can participate in the poll. With that, let me bring up our first panel, the education panel, if you will. If you all can make your way up here, what I intend to do with each one of these panels is really just set up a little bit of the context for where we are in the policy world, very, very briefly. Then introduce the panel. The panel will make their opening remarks for as long as they wish, and then we'll engage in a Q&A. The first panel is specifically focused on education. And there are a few more important topics, clearly, than how we as a society provide educational opportunities for our children, our youth, and frankly, in some cases, our adults. And if you consider the complexity of early education, of K through 12 education, consider the competing models, if you will, that for the most part, education is community funded through property taxes, community based. And yet, we do have the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which primarily through Title I provides federal investment into our local schools. And in so doing, ties policy requirements to the flow of those dollars. Now, ESEA was enacted in 1965, and then we saw a pretty dramatic reform around 2001 with No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind tried to institute accountability standards to those Title I dollars primarily, but as well as other funding mechanisms. And that set off what has been probably 15 years of a growing conversation, is a generous word, I think we could use it, growing conversation about accountability standards. Many of them state-based. But you saw in the current administration a bit of a relaxing from some of those accountability standards with what they call the flexibility package that granted waivers to certain states. 37 states right now have applied for and received waivers from the administration for some of the accountability standards. Now, they're not just clear waivers. Those waivers require certain standards as well. And the administration also set up then what they call Race to the Top grant funding, which Race to the Top grant funding did have very specific requirements to the funding. And that injected a little bit more conversation, if you will, into the national debate over control of federal dollars to influence local education. And in fact, so much so that Congress in December, the end of the year budget bill, restricted any funding for Race to the Top because of some of the controversy and conversation regarding whether or not federal funds can strictly be tied to standards and accountability from Washington. All of that in the context of one other very important issue that has been going on for decades, the question of how and whether we invest in and allow for charter schools and vouchers. And that is a question also of great interest for people on both sides of the issue. But that is the context in which we currently have our education system set up. One that is locally funded but heavily invested in from Washington. Money flows through states, accountability standards are set up, and the lingering question remains. And we will see this in the 2016 race. How much control out of either Washington or Tallahassee should we have over our local schools and the performance of our schools and our teachers? So with that, I am pleased to introduce three very distinguished panelists that we have this morning. Dr. Michael Grego is Superintendent of Pinellas County Schools with more than 30 years of experience as a classroom teacher. Dr. Grego holds 2 master's degrees and a doctorate degree in educational leadership. Please welcome Dr. Michael Grego. Let me also introduce State Senator John Legg. He is chair of the Florida Senate Pre-K through 12 Committee. Born in Brooksville, Senator Legg was first elected to the Florida House in 2004. A Florida certified classroom teacher with more than 10 years of classroom experience. Senator Legg holds both a bachelor and master's degree from University of South Florida. Please welcome Senator John Legg. And finally, we have Ms. Tanette Salazar, who arrived via Atlanta from Colorado last evening, the National State Relations Director for the Education Commission of the States. Ms. Salazar founded Salazar & Associates, an independent lobbying and political consulting firm focused on K-12 education and higher education issues. She holds a bachelor's degree in political science and a law degree from the University of Colorado. Please welcome Ms. Tanette Salazar. And with that, Dr. Grego, I will give the microphone to you for your opening comments, and we will just go down the line.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Congressman Jolly, for having this event and moderating it. And let me take off perhaps where you started, and the importance of policy as it centers around No Child Left Behind. It's certainly a piece of federal legislation that many of us, myself included, embrace because it has a high degree of accountability. It's I think a wonderful bipartisan approach to education. And the issues that center locally, what was happening was that there was a disconnect between the federal No Child Left Behind and what was happening state by state, in our case in the state of Florida. So the short of it is that we had schools that were being rated by our state accountability system as A's and B schools, but yet on the federal accountability system were corrective actions. So this whole issue of reauthorization, I encourage us all to be a part of that, including the educational community and Congress. And so that it was, I think, due to be reauthorized in 2007, and I understand there's work to be still done with this. But we all know that in terms of accountability from the federal to state, my comment would be, let's create a system that is consistent both on the federal and allowing enough flexibility, and that's what the waivers attempted to do. Florida was one of the very first states that issued a waiver, so to speak, and the federal government was approved, I think, in February or March of 2012. So we've been living under this waiver. In fact, the waiver is up to be resubmitted for that. So I think that's an area that our state senators, representatives have to deal with also, because they're also doing a great job in the accountability system in the local level. And wanting it to be consistent with the federal accountability system, so we don't have this disconnect between the two. The other I want to truly praise is the importance of community colleges, state colleges such as St. Pete College, and the importance of Carl Perkins federal funds. Not everyone's going to a four-year university, and it's important. It's the backbone of our economy, it's the backbone of the workforce development issues across this nation, and certainly in Pinellas County. And with that, the federal Perkins dollars, they've gone to such extent. In Pinellas County alone, last year we had over 5,000 high school industry certifications awarded. That is, students who studied a skill, studied a trade, and took and successfully completed an industry certification, which meant employment or meant post-secondary education, some level of post-secondary education, a 2-year AS degree program, an AA degree program, perhaps a university, a technical college, technical schools. So the Perkins, the federal Perkins dollars, I never want to have that overshadowed, but it goes to pay for lab equipment, it goes to pay for teacher training, it goes to pay for internships, supporting apprenticeships, and these truly are the backbone of some of the, what I think is strongest educational policy decisions that can be made. I want to also express the benefit of Title I funds from the federal government and the impact that it has had locally in Pinellas County. Our ability to expand a very restricted day. You know, in education, time is the constant. It's 5.5 hours of instruction. So more and more things are being put into it. So from a policy perspective, we need to continually look at, and the Title I funds for us has successfully accomplished that. We've expanded our school day. We've expanded the after-school program, before-school program. We have over 12,000 students who need continued education to reduce the achievement gap in our school district, taking what we call a summer bridge program. So the regression of summer learning is eliminated or at least reduced tremendously, especially from our high poverty communities and neighborhoods. So the Title I programs, I think it's important as we look at federal dollars, federal initiatives, what does it really mean and how is it delivered at the local school district level and the impact that it's having? And I can say to all of you that it's having a tremendous impact. To try to nip the digital divide, we have placed over 6,000 laptops in students of high poverty, in high poverty neighborhoods. So what has this done? We've partnered with our friends at Bright House and we've created this internet connectivity that we have learning taking place after school. We have learning taking place on weekends, we have learning taking place with siblings, we have learning taking place with our English language learners, because time is sometimes not their friend, it's rather needs to add additional learning time. So all of these things are being bought, afforded through such things as Title I funds. And I would be remiss if I didn't speak a little bit about our students with disabilities and the assistance that we receive through IDEA federal funds and bringing those services that our students, some of our most fragile students in this community, to the forefront, to engage them in educational services, to make them independent workers, independent livers in terms of this society. And those are the things that are truly driving what I would say both consistently on the federal and on the local level. Also want to compliment the E-rate program. I am proud to state that every single school in Pinellas County is connected, both wirelessly and hardwired. We're connected. We're bringing instructional technology to the forefront. We're using it. We're engaging our teachers. And I can say without any hesitation that without the E-rate program, this would not have been possible to the extent and to the speed that we're doing it in Pinellas County. We're also one of 6 school districts in the nation that are focusing in on personalized learning through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We were selected as one of those school districts that will seriously look at how to personalize educational services to students. We have a virtual educational platform in our school district called Pinellas Virtual Education. We were recognized as the top, out of well over 100 of the largest school districts in the nation. Number 17 or 19, I can't really remember, but I know it was in the top 10 or 15% of school districts offering a choice program to parents. And I believe in those opportunities of choice. I believe in competing and to bring the policies to the forefront where parents and others have a quality educational service delivery system with that. So we look forward to our work with the Gates Foundation. We also look forward to, more importantly, the success that we'll have with providing educational delivery, an educational delivery model that might be a little bit off the beaten path in the traditional educational system to address it and really attack the needs of students, and no student truly goes without graduation. Thank you, sir.